Audio Jungle.
All right, so I am here with Michael Grepp. Um, uh, where are you currently from?
Yeah, so I was born in Indianapolis, but I grew up in a Cleveland suburb and probably spent probably about 20 years of my life living there. And for almost 15 years now, I've lived in Los Angeles.
Is it nice there in Los Angeles? I've always wanted to.
It, you know, there's it's a difficult question. I think kind of like what we were talking about before we officially started the interview. The weather here is pretty great. There's just opportunity and people. It's so different, from a like suburb of Ohio, or I think, where you're from.
Yeah,
And it's just, it's LA,
yeah,
that's the simple way to put it. It's the only place or one of the only places in the world where you can go and do and be creative and feel like you're inspired by what's around you, both like setting, but also the people.
yeah. What projects have you been in exactly? I mean, I've kind of done a little bit of research on your projects and stuff, but just that way you can explain your projects that you've been in.
Yeah, so I mean, I've worked on a lot of different movies and TV shows over the years. A few that I'm most proud of. I mean, the opportunity to work on Goliath. That was an Amazon series. I was actually originally supposed to be in like the title sequence, but it got cut because the shots weren't working out. But I think the projects that I've been most working on in the last few years, and we might have talked about this a little bit before, is a lot of my voiceover and animated work, and that's really been a huge passion of mine, especially over the last few years during like COVID when like in-person work you couldn't do. I kind of was like doubling down on voiceover. But another thing that's very easy to find, I don't know if you saw it, um, and it'll ruin for anyone that's watching that checks out those court TV shows. I did a court TV show many years ago, and it's all improv, and it's also most of them are fake. I've heard from some people a few are real, but that was probably one of the most fun projects I've ever gotten to work on because I got to bring my improv skills, but I also had to act, and it's like one take. Have you ever seen like those shows? Have you watched like Judge Judy or like, Mathis or Joe, all those, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I've seen Judge Judy, and I've also seen the clip of you acting in that too. So, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, like it's actually on my YouTube. People sometimes get really upset because they think it's real, but I have like the full like 20-minute episode, and it was just a lot of fun. I mean, that was probably the most fun project I've had a chance to work on other than some of my animated work because I got to be the character, but also just bring so much more to it. Like I got to collaborate with the producers on like what we were doing and with my the guys that I was suing, and it was just like a really fun opportunity to see that bigger picture, be part of something, but also contribute on the acting side.
Yeah. So, what inspired you to become an actor?
So it's actually really kind of a silly story. I was recording a rock album in like this really hip part of Cleveland called Cleveland Heights. And I was recording it right above an acting school. And I would walk by it at night. And I was like, what is this place? Like, I hadn't really thought about it. I think at this point, I'm in my early 20s. I just, I like movies and stuff, but just had never thought too much about acting. And then I just kind of kept getting more and more interested. And one day I walked into the studio and talked to the teacher and audited a class and started learning Meisner. And I always more planned to move out to LA to do music first and then kind of some acting on the side. And it kind of like flipped the script on me. But that's what really started. I don't have like a story of like, oh, I saw like someone's performance. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of like, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, I really like Daniel Day-Lewis, Natalie Portman. I've got my people that I really appreciate, but I don't have that story of I watched some movie or was in like a play or something.
Yeah. How would you describe acting to someone that might not know much about it but is interested in it?
Yeah, so I would say it's probably not what you think it is. You've probably heard this. A lot of times people think acting's about like changing yourself or pretending. People talk about like, oh, I can cry on command. I'd be a good actor. And it's kind of like, hey, like it's probably not what you think it is. Acting is really us being ourselves, and it's learning how to tap into that because as we get like you're so lucky with how young you are. As you go through life, like you see this in school where you have like roles, like there's things you have to do, there's things you can and can't do in school, and even when you're younger, things you maybe can or can't do at home, can or can't say, like whatever. And as you get older, it kind of becomes more and more of that, where whether it's like our job or like society or whatever, like we can't be as creative or as fun or as playful, have that like imagination of a kid. And as an actor, it's like, how do you tap into that? How do you tap into how you really feel if like the most amazing thing happened to you and you could be a 50-year-old man and you're jumping up and down because you're so excited, like things we don't normally see, but feelings that we might have and want to express. And it's really just unleashing that and bringing that to a role, to a part, finding that thing inside of it that's also inside you.
Basically, finding your inner self and exploring and showing that in acting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what like can be hard with society is like we can't always do that. Like I mean you could, right? Like you could have something cool happen and do a little dance in like McDonald's or something. People might look at you like, what is he doing? But like we all want to do that. And when you're acting, like that's where you get to really like release. I think that's why people like to watch because oh, this person like they're expressing themselves. Like I can do that too.
Yeah. How do you overcome being nervous or anxious in front of people while on camera or during an audition?
I I think for me it's just like preparation. I um I get those butterflies, I get those nerves, like even talking to you, like we have those little feelings, right? I think the way you overcome it is just do it. And I know it's easier said than done, but the flip side, I guess, for me is just prepare. Like I looked at your questions, but if I'm auditioning for something, like I'm gonna look up the like director, like I'm gonna look up whoever I am meeting with. I'm gonna try to figure out. I know everything that I need to do, and if it's for performance, it's the same deal, And it can be visualizing. It can be literally using as much of my tools that I have as a person to prepare myself for what I'm about to do. But a lot of it too is just you just have to also do it. You have to just continually get up there. Like when I first started doing stand up, I started booking some shows at some really cool venues. And I started getting some really awesome opportunities, and like I would really want to do them, but I'd also be so scared. And I just like have these fantasies about like calling the club and being like, "Hey, I'm sick," and I would
Yeah.
still go in to do it. I was still scared. And if you saw me on stage, you probably wouldn't think I was scared. But it's like we all feel that way. But you just need to do it and know the worst thing that can happen is what you mess up a line, you forget something, like people are gonna forget that even so quickly too, like the next day. No one's gonna be talking about it. So the easiest way to answer your question is you just gotta put yourself out there and prepare and be okay with whatever happens.
Yeah. I would agree on that because I've noticed just putting myself out there has made things a lot easier too. Just being able to assert myself into things and not be scared and
And it's
stop myself.
yeah, and it's scary to do that, right?
Yeah.
But like that's the only way, and it gets easier, but you always still kind of feel those butterflies, and the goal is to start kind of using that to inspire you and like feed off it.
Yeah. What would you say to people wanting to become an actor but are afraid to do because they think they're not able to do it or to make it in the industry?
I mean, I think the first thing is like, why do you want to become an actor? That's like the thing you want to ask yourself, because thinking about like making it is so far down the road. Because it'd be like if like I play guitar, and if someone asked me like, should I play guitar? I'd be like, absolutely, like it's amazing. But if they're like, should I play guitar so I could become, like a rock star or whatever, I'd be like, well, if that's your goal, I don't know. Like you just, so to be simple about it, with acting, just try things like for you, like being involved in your school's theater or community theater. Like just if someone really wants to express themselves and put themselves out there, like that should be the goal, making people laugh, entertaining people, making them think. And if that is how you really want to go about things, then you can someday think about having a job or having a career, but you have to start really small, because it could be a year before you might even get an audition in a smaller market. I started in Cleveland, and I was very lucky to network really well and be in people's projects and do really cool things, but it was still really hard for me to find and book work and get opportunity. And for me, my goal was just going through the steps. Like they say, it's not the destination, it's the journey. So, for someone who wants to get started as an actor or figure out how, it's really taking those little steps and seeing if it's something you like, and not think too much about the bigger picture.
Yeah. What do you enjoy most about acting?
I think just getting to have fun, getting to entertain people. I mean, for me, like I'm very comedic driven, especially like in my voiceover work, my animation, like the shows that I'm pitching. Like it's really about just, I think, making people laugh and having fun, being able to just unleash the silliest, wackiest, most out there ideas, and getting someone to laugh or to think as a result.
Yeah. What what is your favorite film or theater production so far in your career?
Like something that I've watched or something that I've worked on.
Worked on.
So I don't want to I don't want to talk about myself too much. I mean, and I can't talk too much about these projects because they're in like production, but a few of the different animated series that I'm working on right now, I mean, I'm incredibly proud of them because I'm acting in them, I'm writing, and I'm helping to pitch them. So for me, it's the grand culmination of everything I've been working on over the years, and seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. Um, but for just acting in general, I think it would go back to actually that court TV project that I worked on, because it was something where I collaborated with the producers. I was able to collaborate with the other actors. I was able to like fit in a way that I could see how I could bring more value than just being an actor. Where like I had ideas, about the whole show, like because they had a different idea about how they wanted the court case to go. And we were talking because it's about like, rock band and me getting kicked out of a show. And they had a vague idea, and I helped to really like flesh it out and work with the producers. And it was exhausting. We were on set for like 12 hours. You film for maybe 30 minutes, but you're just on set forever. And you're trying to stay focused, and you're trying to stay present, and just having that opportunity to work on that project and feel like I really brought something as an actor, and also as like an improv artist and as a writer. That was probably one of my biggest. And then hopefully, when one of the few projects I'm working on right now sees the light of day, that will probably be one of them too.
So something for a lot of people to look out for in the future.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
yeah. If
Okay.
you if you I'll give some hints. If there's a something that premieres on Adult Swim Smalls, or something on Adult Swim about a talking bed, or about some aliens called Worldco, or a few other things, you'll see my name on it. So
What do you think can make a role challenging?
I think if it's something that just requires a lot of vulnerability, if it's something where, you have to deal with, trauma, and maybe it's something you haven't dealt with, like the loss of a loved one, or if it is something that you have, it's navigating that boundary of, we can tap into our life experiences, we can use our imaginations to like think, how would I really feel? But it can be really unpleasant, and when you see actors that are really like giving it their all, like they're putting themselves in these places, to get there. Like a perfect example, like I don't know if you ever saw The Dark Knight with like Heath Ledger. Like this is someone that, he put himself in this place mentally that ended up, I think, being the end of him kind of thing. So, I think there's something to be said about those just incredibly powerful like performances, but getting there it can be really hard, and it's like how do you do that in a healthy way?
Yeah. How do you best prepare for a role or character?
So, I mean, I think it really depends. If it's voiceover, I'm analyzing, like I'm looking at the show. I'm thinking where can I find like the parts of my voice that can work with this? Because what's tricky with voiceover is you don't want to like use the voice that seems obvious. It's just like that really with acting or commercial work that we talk about. It's just what is your take on this character? If like for example, I didn't get the part, but I recently auditioned for Swiper in Dora the Explorer. Like I guess it wasn't recent. I think it was like December or November. But I had a really specific take on it, and my preparation was developing that character, and like you bring them to life, right? And you kind of know how they would think or feel, and you can show that in your voice. And that's really how I approach with voiceover. But for traditional acting, it really depends. It depends where I can find myself, how I relate to this person. There was a read that I did in the middle of last year that it was like a period piece, like something from I think like the 40s or 50s. And that's something that's really challenging because it's like, how do I put myself into that place and time, but still be me. So the simpler answer is it's just finding a piece of where or who or what a character is that you see in the script. Looking at all of the clues, looking at all of the information that you have, the project. Understanding like that bigger picture, and then really interpreting it. Deciding, well, who is this then? What do they stand for? And then where do I find that in myself? I don't know if I was like specific enough, but it's kind of hard because it's just so it just varies, on the opportunity, or especially like if it's voiceover or what I'm doing. But I think it really just comes down to like kind of a message I've been saying today. It's like finding yourself, and then finding yourself in that work, and then honing and being as specific and as deep, and like just going as far as you can, where it's like who this person is because it is in some way a part of you, or how you would be in those circumstances.
Yeah, I would agree that a lot of it depends on everything from what I've seen and stuff. Um, what is the most effective way for you to remember a script?
So I'm really visual. A lot of times it is like reading the words, maybe closing my eyes and picturing them. Or another technique is kind of like and I kind of like linking words together. So if you know one sentence, you know how it begins and how it ends, and then like the next word after, it's kind of like going word for word. I think there's actual name for that technique. I didn't invent any of this stuff, but I think those two work really well. But sometimes too, just writing stuff out by hand. But I think picturing it, and just sometimes too understanding like what am I saying to, that way you can see the bigger picture, and it can help if you're going in the right direction, especially like memory wise.
Yeah. Are there any actors or actresses that have inspired you and that you want to try to hopefully meet?
you know I've had a chance to meet a lot of really cool people, and for the most part, the saying holds true, like don't meet your idols, because it can be weird, or you'll realize like, oh, they're just like a regular person, and that's that. But some actors that I really admire, I've kind of already named them, but I have no problem repeating their names. I mean, I think Natalie Portman is amazing. I really like Daniel Day Lewis. I don't think there's a movie that he's in that I don't like. I really enjoy again some of the greats like De Niro, Pacino. I love like those old mob movies. They're really fun ones. Um, I've seen some of Jennifer Lawrence's work. I mean, she seems pretty awesome, especially that comedy that she's in. But so I think some of those people would be really cool to work with in some ways too. But it's for me, it's just focusing on kind of where I'm at now and where I'm headed and the things that I'm doing. Not so much like meeting people or those kinds of things. Because once you're out here and you do meet those kinds of people or you're in those situations, it's just like meeting anyone else. It's like hanging out with your friend or someone in school or something. They're just regular people like us.
Yeah. This one's kind of a tough question, but how do you handle rejection or not getting a role?
So it happens a lot. Like I said,
Yeah.
I had an audition. I actually had a callback once, like a second callback for something where I'm pretty sure the reason they picked me were, they're sorry, did not pick me, were things completely outside my control. That's literally what my agent said. I won't be more specific about it. But the point I'm making is you just do the best that you can and you kind of just set it and forget it, like if like with that swiper audition, I'm almost positive whoever else that they picked, it's probably because they're just a more known name. And Hollywood is very risk adverse. So until like you're a household name, you're fighting, clawing tooth and nail for like those little like cracks and foot in the door type thing. So I used to get bummed out if I didn't get something, or I used to like, take it personally. And now it's just, hey, I know if I'm doing something, I'm putting the most me or best me forward, so to speak. So it just doesn't really bother me, you know. I mean, that's the simplest way to put it. But it's again, it's like what you're asking about being nervous. It's something you just have to like process and get through and feel like that you are doing everything you can. And when you look at life in general, where you put yourself in a situation where you do your best, that you did your part, you can generally thrive off of that satisfaction alone.
Yeah. How do you stay connected to your emotions while playing on screen?
I think it's just by being really present. That's the most important thing. Like when you're working with someone in a scene, like you want all of your focus really on your scene partner. You kind of want to be almost like zoned out because on set can be, a really distracting environment. Like, I don't know if you've ever like been backstage or like behind the scenes before on like a movie or a film set or what your experience is, but you have this little tiny area that everything looks super real, and then right behind you, it's a giant warehouse, or it's a studio lot, or it's on location somewhere, but it's like this little area, everything looks perfect, and it's this kind of fake fantasy environment. So it's our job really just to focus on your scene partner, and be full emotionally too with like your preparation to where you come into that and you have that energy that you need to bring to that scene. Like I was saying, when I worked on that court TV show, the hardest thing was like being ready for when they were going to call me, and being prepared and being ready to kind of flip that switch. So a lot of it is like a mental state of just being prepared before you get on set, so that when you are there, you are ready to express, and you could say your emotional tank is full, so to speak. And then when you are in a scene, it's really your focal point is just on your scene partner. Yes, you might have some blocking or little areas that you need to be aware of, like movement wise, like what have you. But I think just being very present, very focused on the person you're working off of, that you're connecting to, that's like the easiest way, I think, to stay in or to connect with yourself. I think that was your question. I want to make sure I
Yeah.
didn't get too lost in that one. But yeah, I mean, that to me, you know, that's my answer, so to speak.
How do you balance your personal life and acting life?
So, I mean, I'm very lucky where a lot of my, personal life is my acting life. Like a lot of my really close friends out here are agents or in the industry. My partner that I'm working on these animated shows and pitching with, like he's my best friend. So for me, there's a lot of synergy. So it all kind of ties together. But that is like what's so cool, I think, about LA is that you meet people and other creatives and they're doing something. There's a buddy of mine that is a composer, and I was just hanging out at his studio last week, and he's showing me like a project he's working on for NBC. And then I brought my guitar over and we were jamming. So that's the thing is like for me, like my relationships in my life kind of have that like, hey, like we share something in common, and that is like that connection. Like sure, I have some friends I play like video games with and stuff that I grew up with, back home kind of thing, but for the most part it's a lot of what I'm doing. And when I'm hanging out with people, there's a little bit more to it. It is somewhat entertainment related. Like most of my closest friends, they're actors or in the industry in some way.
Yeah. How do you how do you stay up to date on industry trends and new acting techniques?
So I don't really worry about that kind of stuff. I think trends are trends. They're things that like you do and then they go away. Like think about social media. There's people that probably think they need to be on like TikTok or be doing certain things. And if you want to be an influencer or if that's how you want people to maybe someday find you, like sure, that stuff works. Being aware of those things I think is useful. Like the trends that I am trying to be more aware of are like what's happening in the animated space because like if you're trying to pitch a show and the studio is already working on a similar show or like for example like one of the shows we're pitching it is sci-fi oriented, and we're working with Adult Swim right now. And the concern is like, are they gonna? How do they see this isn't Rick and Morty number one because it's a radically different show. But also, I don't know how much you've been following or if you are even familiar with Rick and Morty. Like, there's been a lot of issues with Justin Roiland and the show itself. And it could be something where they're actually eventually looking for a replacement because it's not really the same show anymore. Just across the board with like its tone, its writing, the voice acting. So to me, I guess that's the kind of trends where I want to see where things are just going or what's happening because you need to be strategic because there are times where you might be working on something or you want to pitch something and people actually are really interested in hearing that kind of project or idea. But other times, you need to be aware. Like I know people that have like not gotten things greenlit or were about to get something bought, and another studio just literally put out something with like a similar like plot or whatever. And it happens with movies. There's a if you Google like why hasn't a Harry Houdini movie been made yet, I think there's a whole story about like three different studios have like all these different scripts that they're all kind of ready to opt into and put out. But it's something where it's like mutually assured destruction with like nuclear war, where no one wants to do it because if they do it, they know someone else is going to put this movie out. So they're all like afraid of competing with each other. There's a whole thing about how they made two Steve Prefontaine movies at the same time from like the late 90s or 2000s for kind of that same reason. So for me, I don't think too much about acting trends because it's just how do you find a way to connect with yourself. But I do try to be aware of industry trends and what's going on because that does relate, to what I do as a writer and as a creative.
Yeah. What are your long term goals as an actor?
I mean, my long-term goal is really just having my own show. Something that I learned as I started auditioning and booking work and finally getting on set is like, and also like getting to know and meet with people that have done that. Like I have friends that have been in movies and been in TV shows, and I have friends that have made shows and they've gotten picked up or they've gotten canceled. But the thing I've realized is the more you're in control of your own destiny, the more opportunity you can create for yourself and like kind of the further you can go. So, for me, it's absolutely having a show that I'm not just acting in, but I'm a writer, that I'm composing and scoring music on. Because these are things I already do. These are things that I'm pitching right now, like as we talk. Like we just sent over a couple of different packages after a meeting that we had last week. We just sent them over on Monday. So I'm giving you these updates of as they're literally happening, and these are very long processes. But the point I'm making is, for me, like that's the end goal is having my own show, and then using that to create more shows or create more opportunity for other actors and give my friends jobs and all those kind of little things too. But for you and for anyone else that's watching, like that is the secret to this industry is yes, go out on auditions, train, try to find opportunity and make your own foot in the door, get your own way in. But anyone that really made something of themselves, like they did something, they had a script, they had an idea. Maybe they made a viral video and they kept making them. But the point is, like, the easiest way to make success in this industry, that it's easy, is finding a way to create success for yourself. Make something like what you're doing, interviewing people. Like, it's really cool. I don't know if it's like a school project or if it's like a bigger picture thing for you and like your YouTube channel. But the more you can put yourself out there and create things and do, like, that's the thing that will take you to where you want to be.
Yeah. What character have you played that you can relate to most and why? And I mean, in depth with why it doesn't have to be totally in depth, but
I think I'll go back to because I was kind of playing myself in a way. Like when I did the court TV show, it was, me kind of getting to be a frustrated person that doesn't like, getting like bumped into or, borderline assaulted at concerts. So it was a fun way to really just express how I felt about something. I mean, I'm in my late 30s, but even when I was younger, I wasn't like a big fan of like moshing or any of that stuff. So, not that I'd ever sue anyone or want to take that away from other people at a concert. It's just kind of like being aware of your personal space. I know that's not like the big dramatic, answer, so to speak, but that's kind of the quickest response I can think of.
yeah. Can you discuss a current trend in acting that excites you the most?
Well, I think one thing that I think is cool is like what you can do with social media and what you can like just do with your phone and like self tapes. So, only a couple of years ago, if I'm going on auditions, I'm having to drive all over LA. And even like when I'm in Cleveland, like it was really hard to go on auditions or even find them because there weren't even really any. There might have been like one casting site you could kind of find stuff on, but it was really segmented. So technology has changed things so much where like you could be anywhere and really audition for anything, but it's also up the game with like content you could make and how you could share that content. And like that's I think something that's really exciting. It kind of goes back to, earlier with me saying how people can create that vessel for their own success. Like the technology you have on your phone, you've probably heard this a million times, but that's stuff that you could not do in a desktop computer when I was in high school or even in college, whether it's the editing power or the ability to film. So just using social media and technology as ways to advance your career or create opportunity, those are the things that I think are really exciting, if you want to call those trends.
Yeah. Have you ever had a happy accident that made it to the final cut?
So I think a lot of the voiceover work I do, a lot of times ends up being like improv, and there'll be parts that'll just be kind of like just gibberish or silly or out there, and they end up like working really well because when we're present and in the moment, just saying the first thing off the top of our head, it can be really fun. Sometimes when you're not thinking about what is funny or what's like the best and you're just putting it out there, it ends up being the funniest or the most interesting because it's like your truth, you know, it's just coming from within. You're just blurting it out.
Yeah. Have you ever had a funny behind the scenes memory that you said that you will remember forever?
I mean, I don't know if I ever sat there like I'm gonna remember this moment forever,
Yeah.
but I will say some of my best memories of acting are when I first got started in Cleveland and working on different projects with my acting friends. You know, some of which have gone on to do really awesome things, and I've still kept in touch with, and just joking around, you know, behind scenes. Like there's something about being hanging out with other creatives and you guys just killing time and making each other laugh and being really silly. And there was a project I worked on called Slap Happy, and like the actors that I worked on it with, one of them I still keep in touch with him. He lives in LA. Another, he lives in Atlanta, but he comes out here a lot. I mean, he's done some really awesome things, but like just joking around with them, just like hanging around because this it was also all improv. And when you're in that mindset, you know, whether the camera's on you or not, you guys are just laughing and having fun. And I really felt like that was such a fun environment and the opportunity too. And just like just looking back too, is like this is some of the first things that I ever did. I'd say that probably fits, but I don't know if in the moment, you know, I thought I'm never gonna forget this. I think it was just like, hey, I'm having fun and I'm looking back and being like, wow, like that was kind of like, you know, when things were getting started, so to speak.
Yeah. What's a memorable encounter you have had with a fan?
So I don't know if I would say I have any fans.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not anywhere near that level, so to speak. I've had people compliment my stand up. I've had people that have actually seen stuff that I've made that they didn't know that I voiced it or I worked on it. I get a lot of people that are really angry that think I'm trying to stop moshing at Tool concerts, but that's more on the internet. But yeah, I can't speak much more than that.
Yeah. And I mean, just kind of to wrap everything up, is there anything else that you'd like to add to kind of tell people and
I mean, I know I've told you this a bunch of times in like meeting with you and whatnot, but acting is us just learning how to be ourselves and being bold and putting ourselves out there, kind of like what we talked about earlier with nerves. So reminding people that there's a place for everyone. Anyone can be an actor. It's understanding how and going about things, you know, the right way, so to speak, because there's no like quick fixes kind of thing. But also to repeat myself again, like people, you know, your age, Evan, like you guys have so much opportunity growing up with technology, growing up with the internet, you know, being able to like, you know, the fact that we're meeting and we're talking across the country, you know, I could not have done this when I was your age. No one could, you know, like it didn't happen. So being able to put yourself out there, to be able to film your own sketches, to have, you know, if I had my phone, I would use it as a prop, but having like just the devices that you guys have to make things, like there's nothing stopping you from making something that can be really funny and get someone's attention and can help you become a sketch comedy writer or could help you become a dramatic actor. Like the things that are stopping us are our own fears, our own doubts, or just already being too focused on becoming like famous or viral or whatever. But everyone has an opportunity to make things and to put themselves out there, and that to me is something that's just so exciting and something that I want to remind people that you have control over where you go, where your career goes, and the thing that gets in our ways is typically ourselves.
yeah. I want to thank you for coming on and having some
Yeah.
free time today. I will end it there.